Slide into your mind so silky. Up under the down we fly. Clean it up just to make it filthy. Under the sheets all night. Under the sheets all night.
I usually like to do my brows is I usually like to line them first with a little bit of powder. I enjoy using the powder more than I do a regular eyebrow pencil because I feel like you have a little bit more control with an angled brush, especially if you are like me and you like your eyebrows kind of a little bit more carved out. Can relate if you like to look a little bit more surprised.
Send your location. Slide into your.
So here is it all lined out. Now that is usually how the shape that I usually like to do them. They're a little bit uneven, but you know how the saying goes. They should be sisters, not twins. So now, using another angled brush, it's a little bit thicker angled brush. When I line them, I usually like to use a thinner angled brush so that I can get those sharp lines. And now I'm gonna fill them in, and usually how I like to do that is I'll dip into my dark brown and start at the ends and then kind of work my way up. So I tend to kind of go towards more of the ombre brows, you know? I know a lot of people hate that, but personally I like it. So I'll fill it in a little darker, and then what I usually do is I'll take a little bit of the light brown, kind of fill in that front part, and then also kind of drag it all down too. And then whatever is left on my brush, I'll usually just kind of brush it in, just like that. Now she's looking a little bit dark right now, but that's okay because I'm not quite done yet. Now to blend all of the powders together, I usually like to spoolie it real good. Here we go. Now after that, I usually like to add a little bit of brown gel just to kind of hold it in place because my brows do kind of tend to go down a little bit throughout the day. This is just to kind of glue it in place. So now I'm gonna go in with some NYX concealer, Can't Stop, Won't Stop. Okay, work. And then we're gonna carve out the brows. I'm doing this without a mirror, so it's a little dangerous. Now I usually like to kind of dot everything on, and then I'm going to kind of spread everything out and clean up. Now, I usually use like a normal flat brush, packing brush.
In October it feels like summertime.
Now I usually take a small little beauty sponge and I like to kind of blend it out.
I'm all up in the clouds when it's pouring rain. Ain't never coming down unless you come.
Now she's all carved out. Now I'm gonna move to eyes. I did bring down the concealer a little bit over my eyes to use as a primer. I usually use Urban Decay's primer, but today I'm just winging it today. There's really no plans, no anything. I'm just doing my makeup today, as every day. So I'm gonna start out with a kind of just a simple blending brush. Go in with a transition color. Now, My makeup is pretty basic. I usually always do the same thing. I start out with a transition color always, and the way I usually like to do it is I'll kind of outline the basic shape that I want to accentuate for my eyes. As for my eyes, it's kind of almond shaped a little bit. So what I usually like to do is I like to focus darker on the outer corners and then blend up. So essentially this is how I want my eye to look. Kind of deeper on the edge. It doesn't have to be too crazy or, you know, anything. It's really messy. How I usually do my makeup is I like to kind of go a little bit messier because you can always go in and clean up with some concealer. So it doesn't really matter how you're doing it as long as you're doing it. Bring up the brow bone a little bit and then kind of feather everything out. So the second color that I usually like to go in is kind of like how I want the color to be a bit darker. So what I'm doing now is I'm going in with a tiny bit lighter. I wouldn't really say it's a transitional. I wouldn't even say that it's a transitional shade. It's a bit darker than that. Because what I usually do is I like to go in with first the transitional color, and the second a lighter color, and then the third color I usually like to go in is a darker, even darker color. So really this could be any color that you want, as long as as long as it's just lighter than your final dark color that you're going to use to put into that corner to darken it up. Now, if you want to get fancy with it, a lot of times what people would do is they'll do this with another color to kind of get that blending effect. I'll show you what I mean. So I'm only bringing this into the inner corners slightly, whatever's left on my brush. Kind of brush out. Next, I'm going to go into another color using the same brush. We've been using the same brush. And then for this one, I think I'm going to sweep just all over my crease and kind of blend up a little bit.
Like every night.
Now for next, I am going to go into a foil shade. So it tends to apply better with your finger.
Ain't never coming down unless you call my name. Yeah, we should
Such a pretty color.
like day by day.
I'm gonna go in with a denser blending brush and then use that to pack on my darker outer corner.
Day by day, like day by day.
Bring it in just a little bit. And then with the same blending brush that I use for everything, I'm gonna go in and just blend that out. Maybe even grab a little bit more. I think I'm gonna add just a tiny bit more. Maybe use a more dense packing brush so that's a little bit more intense, especially in that crease, because how I usually like to do is I like my crease to be pretty dark and smoky. Cute. Now I'm gonna bring down the same darker color that I used on my outer to do my lower lash. How I usually like to do it is I'll do just a little bit more than half. So I'll stop right about here. That's where I'm gonna add my highlight color. And so the darker, so the outer lower eye, I usually like to do a tad bit darker, like that. And then I'll go in with one of the colors that I used up here, and just kind of sweep that right in the middle with my same blending brush, the one that I've been using throughout the whole thing. Just kind of blend it all together. Go in and draw some wings. She's not really even. So I made this one just a tad bit lower than how I would usually do it, because I like how I did this one where it kind of goes up a little bit. This one's a tad bit lower. We're gonna see if I can try to fix that with some concealer to make it look a little bit more even, because this right here is not. She's not even. So depending on how well I do my liner, usually I will skip this step. I usually go in with like a felt tip pen and go in and do it that way. But sometimes I feel that it is also useful if you go in and kind of lay some black powder over top. Now this gives it more of a matte look, so if you don't like your liner to be more matte, then this is probably not a trick that you would like or would use. But what I feel like I have more control when it comes to an angled brush. So usually what I would do is I outline with my felt tip pen and then kind of fill in any gaps or fix and straighten out any lines with the angled brush and some black powder. So, and then this is usually how I clean up my edges a little bit. Just kind of add a little bit in there. So I would say she's kind of even. She's even enough to where it's not like crazy noticeable. I feel like since I've stopped doing wing eyeliner, everything has just kind of been going downhill when it comes to making them even and everything. So now, to kind of end my eyeshadow thing that I got going on, we're gonna add some highlights to the brow bone. Inner corner. Now I'm gonna go in and tight line up here of my upper lash, and then kind of go halfway with my eyeliner at the bottom. So I don't know if you can really tell the difference between tight line and then not tight line. You see, it just makes it look so much fuller. We're almost done. I'm gonna lightly contour my face. Go in with a light brown.
No worries, please get back early. Head out with champagne and dresses and let's get girly. No worries, please get back.
The clean brush, I like to kind of blend her down a little bit. And then with the same brush, I go in with kind of a light highlight color. Kind of brush that underneath. we're gonna go in with some blush. Highlight those cheeks. Ooh, she's a little intense. Clean brush, you can always just kind of blend it out a little bit. Now, going in my absolutely favorite part is adding the highlight.
It's been a day, we gonna get wavy. Layer on some diamonds and some pearls. Maybe we could go to the mall, get our nails done,
Hello.
get our hair done, we fly. Maybe we could holler at the boys, looking so good, whistle when they walk by. Cause we know what they want, but we just laugh. Yeah, we won't let them get away.
Almost done. Now we're gonna add some mascara. I literally have been so obsessed with these. Milani highly rated. Every single time that I wear them, people always ask me if I have lash extensions. I usually do about 2 coats. Then we're gonna go in with a ColourPop Disney Villains in the shade Cruella.
It's been a night, we know how to party, dancing like there's no one else around. You know I've been looking so fine, body like mine.
So I'm going to put over a lip gloss over this lipstick or ColourPop Disney Villains collection. This one I believe is the Shadow Man's one.
Cause we so motherfucking fly, yeah. Wings of gold, we touch the sky.
Making my head more highlight, and then we're done.
We so fly.